Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you again. Thankful to be here. Just want to say thank you for all you folks that watch and have subscribed. New people, everybody. I really appreciate it. I appreciate y'all taking the time. I know that we all have busy lives, and appreciate you taking the time to watch the videos, and maybe something that we said or that come from the Word that may benefit you in some way, may give you some understanding that you didn't have. That's our whole purpose of doing this, is that we all learn from it and learn some truth. And so I hope all of you's had a good week. I'm always look forward to doing these. This is sort of, kind of a bless. This is a blessing to me, and so I'm thankful to be able to do it. And so today, the kind of what I wanted to talk about was justice denied. When we look around at the judicial system in this country, and I'm sure this is the case pretty much about everywhere in the world anymore, there's really no justice. Somebody can go in there and point their finger at you and say you did something, and you can be convicted off of that. And of course, the scriptures is clear that that's not how justice is rendered. It has to be out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, and they have to be credible. They have to pass a litmus test. Basically, have these people been known to be honest, to be, truthful? Are they upstanding in their community? Now they'll take and go down to the jail, and they'll grab somebody in there that's, you might not even know them. That'll come out and, they'll tell them, hey, if you'll go in here and testify against this guy and, swear that he did this, we'll knock your sentence off, or we'll let you out. And so that's the, where our justice system is. And of course they, it's, a lot of it's too, it's about money. It's become politicized. Political people use it to go after their political enemies. We're going to touch on a few scriptures. I didn't get a whole lot of scriptures that go around this here, but the ones that I did pretty much lay it out, that, hey, this is how things are supposed to be, done. And also talking about how that, of course, in the time of ancient Israel, how justice was, denied, and how in the future, speaking to our time, that it would be that way, and what people would be saying. So, for example, politically, we can look at Donald Trump, and of course, Donald Trump by no means is no saint. And I look at him as just, he's not a career politician or anything like that. But, everybody has agendas. And, of course he says, he wants to restore America, make America great again, and all that stuff. But I think that, he has an agenda too. And just like, the other political side. And, they have politically persecuted this man. I mean, and of course, again, I believe that is by design, because I think that the Hegelian dialectic is at work here, which is the controlled oppositions. You have two opposing sides, and they act as a distraction as to what's really going on up and down. This is going on the horizontal. They're making you think that you have some kind of a choice, when in reality they're two sides of the same coin. They're being used as distraction. I've talked about that before, about how everything is made to be a distraction to draw your attention away from what they're really doing. And this is, if people would get away from these distractions and get into the Word, then they would begin to see these spiritual powers of darkness that are really ruling from behind the scenes, that are motivating these people to do the things that they're doing. That you would begin to actually see their hand in it. Now again, of course, they cannot do anything that the Father doesn't allow them to do. He is ultimately the one who has control over it all. Through the Messiah or the Word, it tells us that He controls it all. He's in control of all. But He allows these things to happen to people, and these governments to arise, that when they arise, they really oppress the people and cause the people to suffer. But it's because people have, fell into abominable sin. Whenever you fall into sin, there's an end result of it, and of course one of them is no justice. These people are corrupted, and so because they are corrupted the way that they are, they create this two-tier justice system, one for them and then one for us. They can, blatantly, in our face, violate the Constitution, break the law, and there's nothing done about it. Short of, and of course I would never encourage people to revolt, because again, the Father is in charge. He's in control, and He allows these things to happen to us to try to wake us up. Not to revolt, but to repent and turn to Him. And then He'll deal with them. He's capable, more than capable. I mean, you go back and read in Daniel chapter 2, I think it's in Daniel chapter 4, where Nebuchadnezzar had a dream about, he was being troubled, and he got, puffed up. He was standing up saying, look at what I've done. Look at how I've made, I've conquered all these people, and I rule the known world. And he was puffed up thinking that I've done it within myself. And of course he was made to become like a beast, eating grass and hoar growing all over him. And he got claws and lost his mind. And at the end of this period, this 7-year period, he opened up his eyes and he looked up to heaven, and he says, I know that the Elohim of heaven rules in the kingdom of men just as He rules in the kingdom of heaven. And He appoints whoever He will to rule. And so it brought him down and humbled him. And so we can gather from that right there that the Father is in charge, but He will allow the rulers that rule over us to get into power as a means to try and get our attention. But unfortunately, a lot of times people will go the wrong way trying to deal with it. Either, they will try to politically do something that will upset the apple cart and try to forcibly put in the person they want in there, or they'll rebel and have a civil war, or other avenues, terrorism and different things. I mean, we can see where this kind of stuff, political terrorism and stuff, has gone on forever. I mean, when people become disenchanted with their rulers or their government, they begin to take justice into their own hands. And of course, vigilantism, that's another side effect of it, is that when you see what's going on now, examples, this guy that on this subway up there in New York, he choked this guy out, and he wasn't really intending to kill this guy. He was just trying to immobilize him or restrain him. But the law took like 50 minutes to show up, and now they've got this guy charged with second-degree manslaughter. And of course he put him up in a recovery position and tried to help the guy recover. And I would say if he got a good if there was a proper autopsy done on the fella, he was probably on drugs or something, and his heart got to racing. He probably had a heart attack or something. And but this guy will be made an example, and and New York is a prime example of justice denied. You can tell by how they turn out these criminals. This guy, the guy that died, he had been locked up or arrested 40 different times, and yet there he is still out on the street, and had an existing warrant out for his arrest. And it was said that the man had mental issues. Well, if that's the case, why wasn't he getting treatment? Why was he being allowed to run wild on the streets and in the subways, terrorizing people in there, threatening them and threatening them physical harm? When the law is supposed to be there to put fear into criminals, to basically try and deter criminals from that kind of behavior. Well, whenever you call for defunding the police, you've got these George Soros backed DAs that are soft on crime, turn them loose, no bail, letting people out. Then this is what the result's going to be. It's going to be these criminals terrorizing people. But let a law-abiding citizen do something that they believe is illegal, well, they're going to put them in prison. And this is an upside-down justice system. I mean, it's just completely gone out of control. And that's why, and of course, like I said before, I think that all this chaos and all comes down to out of chaos order. That they're using this as a way that they're going to let it get really bad. And not only that, but you're letting millions of people across our border down here, and a lot of these people are probably terrorists and everything else, and they're going to start terrorizing people and going around killing people and drug trafficking, bringing this poison fentanyl in here that's killing 100,000 or more people a year, and nothing being done about it. Nothing. Our government's doing nothing. They're encouraging it. Well, I think it's all part of a greater plan, and that is that people will get so desperate if it continues as it's going, if something's not done about it, and of course what you're seeing being done at this point is vigilantism, which I don't call that guy on the subway a vigilante. I just think he was trying to, to protect people. I mean, he was a marine, and so his nature was to protect people, because soldiers are trained, for that purpose. And so that was probably what was in his mind was, I got to stop this guy, and restrain him. And to protect the people that were not able to protect themselves. And and in other states, you hear in these stories of people taking the law in their own hands, and killing people because the law is not doing it, because their hands are being tied. Especially in these liberal states, where these sanctuary states, where they protect these people, and so and ultimately it's going to lead to all this chaos, so that some entity, some person is going to rise up and they're going to promise, we can deal with this, we can stop this. We can bring peace. And of course, a certain person that's running, that is gaining in popularity, the more they, do these persecutions against him, these political witch hunts and stuff, the more he gains in popularity. And he's, he believes in the rule of law. And enforcing it. Well, if you get somebody like that rises up and, he promises you that, we will shut the border down and we'll round up all these people that's come in here, and the ones that truly are seeking asylum, we will help them to, get asylum. But all these other ones that are just coming here, that are either terrorists, or people, we'll round them up, we'll send them back to their countries, and within 24 hours, I'll have peace between Ukraine and Russia, or there'll be some kind of a ceasefire and peace agreement made. Well, that sounds sort of like that one, the one that's supposed to come and that's going to be doing that. But it says that when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction cometh upon them, because they're looking to the wrong place for justice and for security. They're looking to men and political solutions, and there is no political solution to a sin problem. As long as the sin continues, the evil that will arise up from it, to bring, really it's basically to bring punishment to a sinful, rebellious world. And they will, give up their freedom and give up their, rights in the name of safety and, in peace. That's what will happen. This person will rise up and they say, well, in order for us to do this, we got to kind of curtail these rights here, in order to bring about peace and justice, or so-called peace and justice, and safety. And of course, I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, if people are willing to give up one of their rights for safety, one of their freedoms or one of their rights for safety or security, they'll have neither one, because once you give up your freedom, then you don't have freedom or security, because then you're going to be under a bunch of tyrants. And of course, they're, once they get control, then they'll be the ones that have the power and you'll be powerless. And of course, then they can do whatever to you they want to do. And of course, that's what I see coming, because that's how they work this. They create the problem and then offer the solution. I mean, this is the way they've done this over and over and over again. And of course, the people, they go, they keep falling for it. They keep going for it because they're blind. They're spiritually blind. Otherwise, they would see this for what it really is, and they would reject it outright. And they would demand accountability of these people, and demand that the corruption be rooted out. And of course, the corruption runs so deep, that I just don't see. That the only one that's going to be able to root it out is the one who has the ultimate power and authority over it all, and that's the Messiah. He's going to come back and he's going to root it out, and he's going to destroy those who are the main partakers of it, the main ones behind it. And these political leaders that have allowed themselves to be joined at the hip with these evil powers, these powers behind the scenes, they're gonna they're gonna get theirs, but it's not up to us to do it. We are to because the Father says, "Vengeance is mine, saith Yahuwah, I shall recompense, or I will repay." We're not supposed to take vengeance into our own hands. We're supposed to leave that up to Him. But that's not to say that we're not supposed to call it out. We're not supposed to call out this evil and point it out to people and try to get them to wake up, because they can't get away doing this stuff unless we allow them. I mean, there's way more of us than there are of them, but it's like I've said before about corruption. The corruption at the top is sort of like water flowing downhill. It flows downhill, and the guy down below, the ones at the top, he says, well, I won't say nothing about what they're doing as long as they leave me alone and don't say nothing about what I'm doing. And it works its way all the way down the food chain, down to the little guy in the basement working, up here at the courthouse in town. Or working in the civic building up there or whatever for the city. The guy in the janitor working down there in the basement. I mean, it flows all the way down. Basically look the other way. Because you can't work in that environment. Even a guy down at the bottom of the totem pole, he can't work in that environment and not see examples of corruption going on. And if he was living rightly, he would call it out. I mean, we're supposed to call that kind of stuff out when people are doing stuff that is wrong. It's not, and people say, well, don't judge me. Well, it's not judging somebody. It's just calling out sin, and judging somebody is basically when you want to imply that you are somehow morally superior to them and that you have a right to condemn them. No, it's not condemning somebody or judging them. It's just pointing out the obvious, that they're committing sin, and not only sin, a lot of times unlawful acts. And but see, the political system has made it so that they are exempt from the very laws that they impose on us. They impose these laws on the average person out here, and so and they enforce it on us, as where for anybody in the system that's a part of their system, as long as they keep their mouth shut and go along with what they're doing, they'll protect them. Look at what's going on up there in Washington. With the high muckety mucks. It comes out every day about their corruption. It's everywhere, and of course, not one thing. The people that are supposed to enforce the law, the Department of Justice and the FBI and all that, they're corrupt too. So it's justice denied for the people, and of course, it ultimately will lead to chaos, and then then you're going to get some kind of tyrant that's going to promise that they can correct it all, and all it's going to end up doing is creating a police state that pretty much you got a police or a soldier or something on every corner, and really no true justice is going to come from it. But anyway, let's kind of refer to some of the scriptures here, and I'm sure all you folks out there that listen to that watch, you've seen in your own areas where you live, you've seen the corruption of the justice system, and how they've politicized the law, and the justice system, to use it to go after people that are politically opposed to them or whatever, using it to try and shut them up or for calling them out or whatever, and then using it as a way to enforce really bad laws like civil asset forfeiture and stuff like that, where they just, they can pull you over and you could have, have $5,000 cash on you or something. You might be going to buy a car or something, and the people that are selling you the car, they wanted cash. They don't want a check or nothing, they want you to pay them in cash. There's nothing, cash is legal. It's still legal. I mean, to have cash, there's no law, it's the legal currency. So, but if they pull you over or something, they're going to want to say, oh, this is probably from drugs or something. And so they're going to seize that money, and then you got to prove that it's not. I mean, you could have just went to a bank and withdrew it out of a bank. But yet they will take it, and then you will have one heck of a time ever getting your money back. I mean, they, and of course, according to the way the law is supposed to be, they have got to prove that you committed a crime that resulted in you acquiring that money before they have the right to seize it. I mean, going back to common law, they can forfeit your assets and stuff like that if they can prove that it was gained through illegal activity. But to just take and seize your money, and then, even after you go to court and a lot of times and prove that, you ain't committed no, because they're supposed to be able to, have to charge you with a crime to be able to even do that. And a lot of times they, there isn't no crime being committed, so they can't charge you with a crime. But it's just a matter, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take that money and they'll send it to the FBI, since it's, since the claim is it might be from drugs. It might be. They're not, they don't even have to say that it is. They just say it might be drug related. So they'll take that money and send it to the feds, and then you're really going to have a time trying to get it back. And I mean, this has gone on and on and on, and and the Supreme Court has really kind of dropped the ball on this, and I think made a bad judgment about it, because they still tend to back up the ability to forfeit over people's money without proving a crime was committed. To me, like I said, I mean, if somebody did go out here and say they're peddling drugs, and you catch them peddling drugs, and they got a bunch of drugs on them, well then, obviously if they got a bunch of cash on them, you can seize it and say, hey, it's got to be drug related. Well, that's, there's no argument there. But when you just pull somebody over for a traffic violation, there ain't no drugs there, the guy's just got money, and you take it, well, that's, and I'm sure a lot of you's probably heard that kind of stuff, and then, qualified immunity, these cops, they can go out here and abuse people and violate, break the law themselves, and then they can, there's not anything you can do about it because they just declared qualified immunity. And all these, judges, law, the prosecutors, all them people have exempted themselves from being held accountable. I mean, unless you, got them on video killing somebody or something, I mean, that's about the only way you can do anything to them. And so, I think that's another thing that really needs to go away. And, I mean, now don't get me wrong. I think one of the reasons they come up with this is that, frivolous lawsuits. People suing the law enforcement, because they got pulled or whatever, and so now they want to just, that should be up to a court to decide whether it has merit, and again, you need to have credible witnesses to attest to whatever happened, and if they're proven not to be very credible, then you dismiss it. but it should not exempt them from being sued or being prosecuted for doing stuff that's wrong. I mean, and that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. Nobody should be above our law, and otherwise justice is denied. And justice is the truth about justice is that it applies to everybody equally, and that's where our Elohim and our Messiah stand apart from all others. Is that their justice is righteous justice, and they judge righteously, and their justice and their law applies equally. It applies equally to everyone. And that's the difference between our justice and Elohim's justice. So I'm going to take a look here at Deuteronomy chapter 19 verses 15 through 19. It says, and this is what the Father, this is when Moses is really, this is, when he's kind of coming to the end of his life, and it's before they're going into the land. And so he's kind of giving them a review of all of the laws and the things that they were told in Exodus and Leviticus. These laws and these statutes and precepts and stuff, he's reviewing them all and trying to get it ingrained into their conscience. He says, one witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin, in any sin that he sinneth. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses shall the matter be established. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before Yahuwah, before the priest and the judges, which shall be in those days. And of course, if you go look in the book of Judges, they were judges that were established, because this is before they had a king. Yahuwah was their king. He was the king ruling over them, and he appointed judges to settle these kinds of matters. It says, and the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and behold, if the witness be a false witness, and hath testified falsely against his brother, then shall ye do unto him as he thought to have done unto his brother. So shalt thou put the evil away from among you. So what it's saying here is that if it turns out that this person is a false witness, that he is lying, then the same punishment that the person he's accusing would have gotten for the sin or whatever, this person's going to get. In other words, if he was going to get, have to say he's accusing this guy of killing his cow or something, and I think the punishment for, like, if you kill somebody's animal or something, you had to restore it 4 times, so you'd have to give him 4 animals back. Then if this guy's accused him of doing this, but yet he can't, and it's found that he lied about it, then he should have to give that guy 4 cows. The one that he was, falsely accused. Or if the punishment that the guy he accused would have been to be stoned to death, then this guy would have been took out and stoned to death instead, for making a false accusation against somebody, and that would have resulted in his death. And that's why it said, let it be established in the mouth of 2 or more witnesses. And these people, these witnesses, again, they were to be credible people. People known to be honest and, respected in their communities. Not some guy that's down here in jail that's been in there 30 or 40 times, for the same stuff over and over again. And then you go down there and get him and bring him against this other guy over here, which isn't necessarily the guy that they got, may not be the best guy in the world either, but you can't take somebody that has no credibility and use them to testify against somebody else. That's what it's saying here, because that's not just. Because this guy they're going down here and grabbing up that's been in trouble, he's probably a pathological liar to boot. So he's going, and they probably promising him something. If you'll testify for us, we give you special privileges in jail, or we'll, get you a reduced sentence or whatever. They always do this. I mean, this is well known. They make these deals with people if they'll tell on somebody else, and so and they'll tell this guy what to say. And he may get up there, and you may never even have seen this guy before in your life. And yet he's getting up here and he's testifying that you did this and you did that. Well, that should not be allowed. Not in a true system of justice. A system that is truly just, that would not be allowed. And even in this country, there was a time when, if it was just a matter of my word against somebody else's, they would pretty much toss it out. Because how are you going to know who's really telling the truth? And so, you would have had to have some credible people testify against you in order to be convicted of a crime or something. But of course, that's gone by the wayside, because originally the way things were, were kind of based off of Scripture, as far as the justice system was originally set up, and it was based on these things about having 2 or 3 witnesses that were credible to testify against somebody, and having, that's why it says beyond a reasonable doubt. And but now, I mean, look at Trump. Just use him as an example. There in New York, they didn't convict him of any kind of crime, rape or anything like that in that E. Jean Carroll fiasco. I mean, he said, he never even seen the woman before, except one time that she was married to somebody that was politically, or business or whatever, that he, years ago he had met the man and she was with him, but he said as far as knowing anything about her or anything, didn't know anything about the woman. And never, never seen her since then, and much less been on a flight with her. And so, but yet, they basically, and he was, and by a jury of his peers, 9 people in liberal New York City, where he's been, dragged through the mud there on the mainstream media. And of course, all they're going to do is put him out there in a bad light. Well, and you're in a Democratic stronghold, and these people, they are just go blue no matter who. I mean, they will vote for these people even if it's against their own best interest. And so so they couldn't they didn't have no proof of what she said. So they just said that they got him for libel for saying that she wasn't his type. Now tell me, how does anybody force somebody to pay millions of dollars based on, he said, hey, I wouldn't be with that woman because she ain't my type. Well, I mean, how is that libel? So now in New York, I guess, if you go out there and say, well, I don't want to be with that woman because she ain't my type, or I don't want to be with that man because he ain't my type, I can take him to court and get money out of him. I mean, that just is how flip-flopped upside down our, judicial system is. And not only that, just how insane, I mean, how insane our whole country has become. And I talked about that when I talked about the blessings and the cursings, that was one of the things that it says would happen to people is they fall into madness. And that is, I guess, what you'd call madness. I mean, whenever, you have these kinds of verdicts and stuff based on something like that, I mean, that is just, and of course he's going to appeal it, I mean, and eventually some court's going to throw it out because it's just totally insane. That you could be, have a judgment for $5 million against you, and then you got the mainstream news media out there making all of these, I would go after them if I was him, because they're out there libeling him, saying he was convicted of, of rape and stuff like that, and he wasn't. I mean, but that's how the news media works to form narratives, and it's sort of like, I think it was the propagandist for Adolf Hitler. I think it was Himmler. It might have been Goebbels or somebody, but I think it was Himmler. But he said, if you tell a lie often enough and loud enough, people begin to believe it. Well, these mouthpieces on the mainstream news media, that's what they do. They if they cannot defeat you one way, then they will destroy you through the media. They'll use the news media, the print media, whatever, to try and destroy your credibility, destroy your name, to make you look as bad as they can. But in the case of Trump, the people on, they are people that, not necessarily Christians or anything like that, but just people that have not been completely blinded by what's going on, that their eyes are open to what's going on. They see what these people are doing, and so they naturally, they're not buying into it. So his popularity has gone up, and whenever people that are sort of what they call the middle of the road people, maybe the libertarians and people, independents, that don't really, are not really a part of either of the political parties, the main political parties, they see, what's going on, the political persecution and the politicization of the law to be used to try and crush your political enemies. Then, naturally these people, and they see it continuing, and it just keeps going on, that they just don't stop. And that's the way this machine is. That they, when they go after somebody, they won't stop. And it's like I said about the way Satan is. I mean, and his minions, they don't stop. They don't stop. They don't rest. They don't give up. They don't, they continue the attack nonstop. And they're going to do that to us. And one of the ways that they, operate is to destroy the justice, where there is no justice. But you can see what the Father has to say about it, and that you're going to do it this way here. And he says that he wants justice. He wants people to be just and merciful. And how can we ask him for mercy when we're not merciful? How can we ask him for justice when we're not just? I mean, we can't. So I'm going to look here in Isaiah. Let's see. I had here's one in Proverbs I got here too. Chapter 21 and verse 3. It says, I'm going to start at verse 1 here. It says, the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. In other words, that's what I was saying a while ago about how he's in control over these. And he can harden their heart, or he can soften their heart, and he can turn them whichever way he wants to turn them. Like taking and diverting water. You can divert it over here, you can divert it over there. I mean, he does that. He says, But, and the reason he does is because of the way that we do. He does it in response to how we act. He says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but Yahweh pondereth the hearts. He knows our hearts. It says, to do justice and judgment is more acceptable to Yahweh than sacrifice. He wants us to judge rightly and to administer justice rightly and temper it with mercy. I mean, he's not saying that people shouldn't be punished when they do wrong. That they should. And, but it should be justly. It should be based on what, the severity of what they did. And he has a prescription for that. There's certain things that, are capital. I mean, that you should be put to death for. And I agree with it. But it can only be right to put somebody to death if they get true justice. I mean, that it is beyond the shadow of a doubt that these people committed a heinous crime, murdered someone in cold blood, then they should forfeit their life. But it should, but with the way our justice system is now, it's hard to say that should be the case, because people can be set up, and I mean, we hear about all these instances of law enforcement, different ones, fabricating evidence and tampering with evidence and suppressing evidence and stuff like that. I mean, that's not justice. And then this comes to what's here in Isaiah chapter 59. And it's starting at verse 1, and really, the whole chapter is about this. But it says, behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy that it cannot hear. But your iniquities have separated between you and your Elohim, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. And that's, that's the situation that we find ourselves in here in the United States. He's not short, his hand's not shortened, that he can't deliver us, that he can't save us out of a situation, that he can't hear our cries. But when you have a nation that has fell into iniquity the way that this country has, and into abominable practices, he's not really going to hear us. I mean, the only thing he's going to hear is the prayer of repentance. I mean, that's where he's going to stand with that at. And really, when you have national sins, stuff like abortion and same-sex marriage and all that kind of stuff, that's national sin, and it falls on the nation. And that means that if it falls on the nation, it falls on its people. Even if you are living right and you calling it out or whatever, it's still, you're going to suffer for it too. I mean, when you look at the house of Israel, there was still some people in the house of Israel that were living rightly. I mean, you can look at, the Isaiah and different ones that were calling them out for their sin. But, those people suffered whenever the Assyrians came in there and, laid siege to them and starved them out or whatever, I mean, the rights suffered with the wrong. And because it was national sin. And so the ramifications of that national sin, it falls on all. It falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. And when his judgment comes. And so, that's why he says there in Revelations, Come out of her, my people, and be not partaker of her sins. You know, that's why we need to be, as Christians, we need to come out of this system and, you know, not take part in it and call it out. Because, you know, speak up. That's how these people get to this point, is because everybody turns their back and looks the other way, or just says, well, it ain't affecting my little world, and so I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. And especially from the pulpits, that's why it says judgment begins at the house of Elohim. It's going to start with them. It's going to start with the church. It's going to start with these people that claim they are Christians, that claim they are proclaiming His word, when they're not. When they turn their back, they look the other way, and they say nothing about what is going on. In fact, they are empowering it. Because of their, and they now, you know, they all pretty much go along with it. They go along with the transgender. They go along with the homosexuals. They go along with the delayed, you know, deferred justice for people. They go along with abortion. And they don't call it out. That's because they don't want to give up their 501c3 status, and that's because they're afraid that they might offend somebody in their congregation and they might leave and they don't get their money. I mean, that's just what it really comes down to. I mean, you just really don't, you know, hear anybody hardly anywhere in the mainstream churches, mainstream denominations calling out any of this stuff. Yeah, you'll hear one here and there. You know, people like John MacArthur and different ones, Jonathan Cahn, Dean Odell, you know, but they're few and far between. And that's why we're living in the age of apostasy. This is this is exactly what Paul was talking about. You know, that this apostasy, you know, would come. And this lawless one, this apostasy, well, you can't get nobody any more lawless than Joe Biden. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. The man is lawless, and you see this the religious system here in America has gone into just about complete apostasy, and it has to be called out for what it is. And you know, you can like it or not, but the Scriptures tells you how to recognize it. I mean, it's just pretty much plain, you know. And when they are not calling it out, then they are being, you know, it's just the same thing as approving of it. I mean, if you don't call this stuff out, you're, you know, basically you're saying it's okay. And that's why evil flourishes when good men do nothing. I mean, it was one of these high priest over, big muckety-muck priest over there, or father or whatever, over there in Germany, says, you know, my biggest regret is that I said nothing when all this was, you know, when he saw all these atrocities going on, he didn't say anything. And of course, if he had, when he had the opportunity, it probably would have made a difference and prevented it from happening. Because he had a high position, you know, in respect and authority, you know, religious authority. And he could have said something and got the people to listen. But instead, he just kept his mouth shut, and there you have it. Well, that's why all this stuff is taking place now. Is because these people ain't said nothing. It's, let's just don't rock the boat. And as part of being a 501c3, they cannot be politically. They're not supposed to be politically active. You know, they're not supposed to say anything that you know, have an opinion about whatever's, you know, political. Well, that's just one way of taking a voice away, a moral voice away. And of course, by doing that, they basically put themselves in the position of becoming apostate, because they basically sold out for money. They'd rather have money and a bunch of parishioners there handing them tithes because they don't want to say anything that might offend somebody in their congregation. And then they lose the money. Well, if they were doing what this says, what this right here, what that says, and following this, they wouldn't care if they lost all of them. Because it ain't got nothing to do with money or anything else, prestige or the size of your church. It has to do with truth. With the truth. And they will, for love of money, filthy lucre, they will keep their mouth shut, not speak the truth. And then because of that, that is what leads to apostasy, because they end up becoming apostate themselves and teaching false teachings that tickle the ears of their parishioners so they can keep them hooked in there. You watch these televangelists and all these people on there, and that's all they talk about. Sow your seed, man, and you'll be blessed and all that. That's all they talk about. And there's nothing further from the truth. That, yes, we're supposed to give for things that are right, to help promote the gospel and stuff like that right there. Because Paul said, a workman is worth his hire. And that, but when you go back and look at the tithing as it was laid out in Leviticus and all, certain people paid the tithes. The people that raised cattle and the people that raised grain, that farmed, those were the ones that were required to provide tithes. And it was mainly for the priesthood, because the Levites, they were in service of the temple and of the religious worship. So they couldn't go out and grow food, and they couldn't go out and raise animals and stuff. They were busy doing that. So the offerings and stuff. And it was also so that, it's just like the law of gleaning. Whenever you gleaned your fields, anything that you didn't get in the first harvest, first pass, you left it. And you didn't glean the corners of your fields. That was for the stranger and for the widows and the orphans and stuff, so they could come and gather that up and they could eat. And then whenever they would have these holy days where they slaughtered all these animals and sacrifice and stuff, they all eat. They all eat the meat. And so, that was how that system worked. And so, but these people, they have made that the center of their religion. And of course, the disciples, and we're supposed to help people, but and we're supposed to, if we see somebody in need, we help them. I mean, that's just what we're supposed to do, and that's even to somebody that ain't even a believer. I mean, if you see somebody that's hurt or hungry, like the Good Samaritan, so that's a given. But just to prop up some big fancy building over here that really a lot of times has nothing to do with this, that really is just being used to spread false gospel. I wouldn't give them nothing. And of course, when it comes to the word, Christ said freely to his disciples, freely you have been given, freely give. Nobody should have to pay for this. Nobody should have to pay for this. It should be freely given. And that's what I do. I don't care about anybody. I'm just thankful that I've got a home. I got, to live in. I got food and, clothes to wear and my health. I mean, what more can anybody, ask for? I mean, really. I mean, when you look at all these people that just seem to be, out, and again, I don't envy or covet what these people, if they can go out and make $1 billion, more power to them. But I do believe with that kind of wealth comes responsibility. The more it is given, the more that is expected of you. And so, they should do good with that. And it should be towards furthering the kingdom of Elohim, but these people don't do that. They hoard it unto themselves, or they spend it on frivolous, stupid stuff. But then, that's their reward in this life. They get the reward here. And if they, except that they repent, I mean, that is going to be their reward and nothing else. I look for a different reward. I look for, well done, faithful servant. And that's more important to me than all the money in the world. Because, Christ said, what would it profit a man if he gained the whole world and lose his own soul? And what would it be worth to a man for his own soul? What would he give? I mean, that's what I would be thinking about. Because people make that their God and they put their trust in that instead of putting their trust in the one who can deliver. And it says, it says, for your hands are defiled with blood and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies. Your tongues have muttered perverseness. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. Boy, is that going on now more than any time in my lifetime, I can tell you that. They hatch cockatrice eggs. And of course, cockatrice is an adder. It's a type of snake. But it's also, there's other indication it might be something even different, that's actually has the spirit of an entity in it. And weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. And I think that kind of there can be construed as a metaphor. Those that eateth their eggs dieth is talking about partaking and eating of that sin. The sin of the serpent. The sin of the cockatrice. Partaking of that. You die. And that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. Their webs shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. The way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. I mean, we can see that that's what these people do. Our leaders and these people that deny justice and sound judgments. I mean, you can't see no sound judgment coming out of Washington. And, and you look at how they're trying to stir up, they constantly stirring up war somewhere to try and force people to conform to their globalist agenda or whatever. And of course, when, there's no justice in that. And it says, therefore is judgment far from us, neither doth justice overtake us. We wait for the light, but behold obscurity for brightness. But we walk in darkness. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead men. We roar all like bears and mourn sore like doves. We look for judgment, but there is none. For salvation, but it is far from us. For our transgressions are multiplied before thee, and our sins testify against us. For our transgressions are with us, and as for our iniquities, we know them. In transgressing and lying against the Lord, and departing away from our Elohim, speaking oppression and revolt, conceiving and uttering from the heart words of falsehood. And this stuff, these falsehoods, I mean, you listen to, they lie and deceive and disinformation, misinformation. They're the ones that are putting the disinformation and misinformation out. I mean, on a non-stop basis. I mean, stuff that, you know for a fact to be true, they will get up there and absolutely deny it and say it is a lie, when they themselves are the ones that are the purveyors of lies, disinformation, and misinformation, non-stop propaganda, non-stop. And it says, and it comes from their hearts. This stuff is coming from their hearts. Hearts of stone. It says, and judgment is turned away backward, and justice standeth afar off. For truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. I mean, when truth falls in the streets, when truth dies, justice is gone. I mean, it all stems, the lack of justice stems from the lack of truth. You can't have justice without truth. And of course, justice is fallen, truth is fallen in the street. Walk on it, stomp on it. And so justice is far away. It's departed. And yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. When you do right and you depart from evil, you make yourself a prey. Open yourself up for attack from these people, from these evil ones that are denying justice, the ones that are withholding judgment, or having poor judgment. And you open, when you do right, when a person does what's right, what this says is right, you're going to be a prey. You're going to be a prey like, a rat to a falcon. I mean, that's just and it says, and Yahweh, he sees it, and it displeases him. It says, and of course it says, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. And Yahweh saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. Now this is talking about the people there in the house of Israel, but it's also, this is totally relevant to our time. I mean, this is, when you read this, you can see the parallel. And it says, and he saw that there was no man, and wondered that there was no intercessors. Therefore his arm brought salvation unto him, and his righteousness, it sustained him. For he put on righteousness as a breastplate, and an helmet of salvation upon his head, and he put on the garments of vengeance for clothing, and was clad with zeal as a cloak. According to their deeds, accordingly he will repay fury to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. To the islands he will repay recompense. So shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith Yahweh. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith Yahweh. My spirit that is upon thee, and my word which I have put in thy mouth shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of thy mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed's seed, saith Yahweh, from henceforth and forever. So, and then we can see where, justice is coming. Justice is going to be coming. And let's see, back here in Proverbs, there was Psalms rather, Psalm 89:14. Christ is the source of justice and judgment. Our advocate. And, against the accuser, the adversary that accuses us all the time, against him, and he's coming to, it says here in Psalm 89, it says, Thou hast a mighty arm, strong is thy hand, and high is thy right hand. Justice and judgment are the habitation of thy throne. Mercy and truth shall go before thy face. That's the only source of true justice and judgment. And fortunately, it says that truth, mercy and truth shall go before his face. And we should be, absolutely thankful for his mercy and long suffering. And that he does judge righteously and equitably, and he puts forth justice, true justice. But it's his and his alone. We do not have that. We just can't seem to do that. Human beings. To bring justice, and if we followed his word and his way, we would. But people, like I said, they get to thinking with their own head, doing that which is right in their own eyes, and then once people fall down that path, then it's all downhill. To the pit, because they start issuing out their idea of what justice is, rather than what justice truly is, and they rule wrong. All right, now we're going to look here in Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 5. It says, Behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment, and justice in the earth. And it says, In his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely, and this is his name, whereby he shall be called the Yahweh our righteousness. Talking about the Messiah, when he comes back, and of course when he came in the first time, but he, the first time he come to be a sacrificial lamb, But the second time when he comes as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and to rule with a rod of iron, and to rule justly, to show mankind what true justice is. And justice, sound judgment, and justice tempered with mercy. And so, you know, when justice is denied people, you end up, with a world that spirals out of control into chaos and then ultimately into destruction. And that's what we see coming and what we see happening. And it ain't just here in America. Excuse me. It's everywhere. It is everywhere that justice is being denied people. And, political persecution, religious persecution, and, and of course this stuff is what'll end up happening is, like I said earlier, is you end up having, an uprising, and you see it happening in places like France and over there in Pakistan and other places whenever these politically motivated witch hunts and oppression of political opposition and stuff like that happens, then people, they rise up. And of course, no matter how powerful a leader is, when you have your whole population rise up against you, you're liable to lose your head. And so, and I don't want to see that happen here in America. I don't want to see it happen anywhere. But, that's and the Father allows that. He'll allow it. But it's the result of our own sin and iniquity. That's exactly what it was talking about there in Isaiah. That, these things are, and it's because, and it starts at the top with your leadership, the corruption, and it just kind of works its way down through the system to where everybody in that system is corrupted. And of course, they go along with this stuff that they do to people and don't say nothing because they don't want to lose their position. They don't want to lose their paycheck, their benefits, and so, and when you do have somebody in there that comes out, a whistleblower or whatever, well, they persecute them and they bring them up on charges. And of course, they're supposed to be protected. The system is supposed to be set up to encourage people to come forward and reveal when corruption and illegalities and stuff is going on in the government. But, really what it is not for these people to come out and expose them. No, it's to find out who the people are that are going to expose them so they can get rid of them. So they can eliminate them one way or another, whether it's through, they'll crop up a bunch of false charges against this person, or destroy them in the media, try to destroy their credibility, to where, and then whenever they do go up there and testify before Congress or something like that, nothing happens. Nothing happens to these people that are doing this stuff. How can the people that are supposed to enforce the law, if they're corrupt and these people are exposing them, you really think that these people are going to come and arrest themselves and put themselves in jail? Not hardly. And it's that kind of stuff that ultimately ends up leading to, like I say, the revolts and uprisings and stuff like that right there. Because you're not going to get any justice from people who are corrupt, and again it goes down through the system until you get down to the local magistrate. A lot of times, that, they're going to follow the party line. They're not going to go against their own. And so, same thing like with the medical establishment. All this, last 3 years of this hoax is basically what it's been. Big lying deception, and now they're all abandoning ship and trying to get away without losing their skin. And they all went along with it. I mean, and the ones that did call them out, the Balfour, I think it was there was some kind of declaration that all these scientists and physicians and stuff came out with, calling this stuff out. They have, just tried to destroy them in the media and destroy their livelihoods and, got them fired from their jobs. I mean, goes to show you, if you come against your own, they're gonna crucify you. So there is no justice for anybody that is going to speak the truth. That's because we're in the age of deception, deceiving and being deceived. And so the only justice that we can look forward to is when our Messiah comes and he puts down all of this corruption and this evil and establishes his rulership over the nations. And he will rule the rod of iron. And his rule is his judgment, and his justice is righteous. And because he knows the hearts of men. So, when he judges, he don't need no witnesses. Our own hearts will witness against us. And so we have to take heart in that look for him, and hasten, pray for the hastening of his, return, because, until then, it's only going to get worse. And we can already see in this country, they're making the moves to try to bring, prosecute, or persecution against the true believers, and they're going to. I mean, they're doing it all around the world. And so it's only going to get worse. So as the Yahushua said, in the Lord's Prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." We need to pray for his kingdom to come and for his justice to be established. And so with that, something for y'all to ponder and think about. As I always say, it's my true desire to always bring you the truth. Of course, I'm a man. I'm a man like any other. I have, failings and frailties, and, I can be wrong about something. So that's why I tell you, be a good Berean, do your homework, study the scriptures, pray and seek discernment and understanding, because it comes ultimately from the Father by the way of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. That's where wisdom, knowledge, truth, and understanding come from, and we need to seek it. If we seek it with our heart, he says he'll give us the desire of our heart if it's right, if it's righteous, if it's something that is right. And of course, wanting to know the truth and have understanding of his word is right. And he says seek his kingdom. Seek his kingdom first, and all other things will be added unto you. And it says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. So seek that. Seek his kingdom, seek the kingdom, seek righteousness, and then He'll, the truth and justice and judgment, true judgment, and all will be granted to us. How to discern what's right, and how to discern right judgment. And so with that, I love you folks. I appreciate y'all taking your time to watch these videos, and because I know, like I say, everybody's got a lot, probably got a lot on their plate. I mean, it's harder and harder for people to make it these days. You got to work all the time and struggle and all, but so I realize your time's valuable, and I appreciate it. Again, I love you and I thank you, and I hope that you will all be blessed. And I'll see you again next week if Yahweh is willing.